Well, still back looking at what went on that first teaching job after the Korean War. Yeah, I was more excited about the coaching than I was the teaching, but the teaching was important, and I certainly tried to make it during the school day before after school sports the real focus. And taught general science, biology, and a couple of other things. But I got into that hassle about the age of the earth. And, that was 55 years ago. And I'd like to think that 55 years later, that we'd have some understandings in religion and in science that would be smooth and compatible. While we were back in Kansas this last summer, big news. The Kansas legislature appointed somebody to be the commissioner of education who was extreme right-wing. And with the legislature, with their man in place, dictating that creationism would be taught in the science courses in the public schools of Kansas, it created quite a debate. A debate that, if you got to be bullheaded about anything, and I am sometimes bullheaded, you can, set your feet and find all sorts of to say that this is the only way. Well, I ran into that as a teacher back there in the 53-54 school year, and I'll get to that in a minute. But it's embarrassing to me that the state of Kansas, now my wife reminds me I was born in Oklahoma, but from the 5th grade on up, I went to public school in Kansas, and I feel like I'm a Kansan, even though she reminds me on occasion that, no, you're an Okie. Well, I don't remember the young lady's name, but she was in the biology class, and a nice girl. I do remember that. There wasn't anything persnickety or malicious or anything like that at all about this young woman. And when she asked to see me privately, I assumed it was some personal matter. So I violated Mr. Wagaman's recommendation to never have the door shut when you have a female in the room, and we were sitting in the classroom during the planning period, and I said, okay, what's up? She said, well, I can't understand how the science book and you can say what you say about the age of the earth. And I found that a little bit strange then, and a lot more strange as I looked back on it years later. I don't think it was a problem with her until evidently she said something in the presence of her Sunday school teacher or perhaps her minister. And boy, back in that day and age, it wasn't unusual. A number of Bibles had a timeline right on one of the pages, the flyleaf and so on, saying this is the age of the earth. Dated. Well, certainly those dates didn't coincide with what was already known back in 53, 54 about the age of the earth scientifically. And it never bothered me. As a Christian, didn't bother me then, doesn't bother me now. So I listened to her and said, I'm a Christian, and I don't necessarily argue with the timeline that your church people are saying is the correct timeline, but neither do I argue with what the science book says. I said, you want to remember, go back and look in Genesis at the paragraphing and the lining. And it indicates there that on the 3rd day and on the 4th day and so on. But it doesn't say how long a day was at that time. Part of that time lapse was before he even created the sun and the moon. And so that opens the door to me that there could be all sorts of time go by that were not like the days that we know now in this solar system. Well, I said the other thing, it isn't important to me. I don't I don't feel the need to be absolutely sure about that sort of thing. There's another place in the Bible, if I remember correctly, I told her, that it says something about a day is as 1,000 years in the eyes of the Lord. Well, that would sort of indicate that time is a variable in terms of God. So, she didn't argue with me, and she seemed to feel better about it, and it was never brought up again. So that certainly seems odd to me that in 2008, 2009, and now 2009, 2010, a state filled with really reasonably intelligent people, Kansas, has a legislature that is dictating that creationism will be taught. Now, I wouldn't mind if they say, let's teach this, and just say there's two views. You can blend the two or take either view. But to try to make it the teaching of the age of the earth in contradiction to what we've learned scientifically makes no sense at all to me.